Past Sins. Chapter 4. Distant Storm Clouds. Twilight stepped down the stairs of the library, having just tucked Nix into bed. The filly was exhausted, falling asleep as soon as her head hit the pillow. Down on the library's ground floor, all of Twilight's friends, Spike and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, waited to hear how Nix was doing. Only Rarity and the Cutie Mark Crusaders knew Nix well enough to be concerned, but the others were there because they knew it was important to Twilight. It was something Twilight appreciated greatly. "She's okay, just tired. I just put her to bed," Twilight assured with a gentle smile. With that, the tension in the room dissipated. Twilight embodied this release in tension by dropping to her haunches, sitting there on the floor. The past several hours had been trying, but Nix was safe. No worse for wear. Mostly. "Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am exhausted," Rarity noted. "I hope you don't mind, Twilight, but I'm going to take Sweetie Belle home." Twilight shook her hair. "No, I don't mind. I know you're all tired. You should all go home and get some rest. Would you, maybe, want some of us to stay?" Fluttershy offered. "No, I couldn't ask you to do that. You all dropped everything to help me find Nix. I couldn't make you stay now that she's safe." "Well, shoot, Sugar Cube. That's what friends are for. You'd do the same if Apple Bloom went missing. Or Sweetie Belle. Or Gummy." "I know," Twilight said. "Still, I can't thank you all enough. I was really worried about her." "It wouldn't be right if you weren't concerned. You obviously care about that cousin of yours," Applejack said, starting to head for the door. "Still, Twi's right. We should be in bed, including 3 certain fillies that have school in the morning." "Aww, but we want to stay to make sure Nix is okay," Apple Bloom whined. "No dice, Apple Bloom. You got school tomorrow. You can come and check on Nix after class. The same goes for you, Sweetie Belle," Rarity added, looking at the smaller white unicorn. "We need to get you home and into bed." "And I know your mother's got to be worried too, Scootaloo," Twilight remarked. "Oh no! My mom is going to flip!" the orange Pegasus realized. "Hey, don't worry, kid. I got you covered," Rainbow Dash said, giving Scootaloo a noogie. "I know your mom. How about I fly you home and explain everything?" "Wow, you'd really do that?" "Hey, you stayed here just to make sure Nix got home safe. That's a kind of loyalty I can appreciate," Dash explained as she landed on the ground and motioned for Scootaloo to get on her back. "Now get up here." Scootaloo grinned ear to ear, more than eager to accept Dash's offer for a flight home. With that, the mass of ponies filtered out of the room, Twilight saying good nights and thank yous as she watched every pony leave. The unicorn then shut the door to the library, letting out an exhausted sigh as she began to head for the stairs. She was starving but too tired to eat. She'd just wait and have a big breakfast in the morning. Knock, knock, knock. Twilight turned, eyeing her front door as she debated opening it. She really just wanted to go to bed. But her courteous nature got the better of her. The unicorn turned and walked towards the door, and she opened it magically. "That's her, Daddy!" Twilight's eyes hardened as she saw Diamond Tiara standing on her doorstep, this time accompanied by an older stallion. He had a grayish-violet mane and a complimentary grayed red-toned coat. He was substantially sized, though not as large as Big Macintosh. He had a cutie mark of a jeweled necklace and a jeweler's eyepiece. His azure eyes were set down in a hard glare set directly upon Twilight. "Can I help you?" Twilight asked, trying to be as pleasant as possible. "You most certainly can," the stallion growled. "My daughter says you threatened to turn her into a cactus. I will not stand to have my child threatened. consider yourself lucky I'm giving you a chance to apologize, because if you weren't one of the ponies that stopped Nightmare Moon last summer, I would have gone straight to the authorities." Twilight furrowed her eyebrows and stepped directly in front of the stallion, locking her eyes with his as she returned his glare. "Well, you should know the only reason I threatened your daughter is because she sent Nyx into the Everfree Forest, into a place where she could have gotten hurt, lost, or eaten. It's not my daughter's fault too if this Nyx doesn't know any better. I've made sure my daughter knows how dangerous the forest can be. Perhaps you should consider doing the same." "First, Nyx is my cousin," Twilight snapped, reinforcing the lie she'd given to most of Ponyville. "Second, Nyx does know how dangerous the Everfree Forest is. But your daughter convinced her that the forest wasn't dangerous when you got far enough in and gave her a map." "Do you have evidence?" the stallion asked coldly. "Because otherwise it's Nyx's word against my daughter's, and Diamond Tiara would never lie to me." "And Nyx would never lie to me," Twilight exploded, stamping a hoof on the ground. "Your daughter, on the other hoof, has every reason to lie, and from what I've heard, your daughter is nothing but a bully, and you are doing no favors protecting her from the consequences of her actions. So let me make this crystal clear," Twilight continued, her voice getting low as possible as she stood on the tips of her hooves, trying to make her eyes level with the stallion's as possible. "If she does anything like this to Nyx again, being turned into a cactus will be the least of her concerns." The stallion backed off, surprised by Twilight's fury. He, however, quickly recovered, scowling as he redoubled his outraged tirade. "Who do you think you are, threatening my family like this? I am a respected member of this community." "And I'm the unicorn that beat an Ursa Minor bare-hoofed, and also Princess Celestia's private pupil. So, if you really want to push your luck, I'd be happy to take this outside. Otherwise, get out of my library." The stallion swallowed at this, his conviction wavering. There was a tense moment where Twilight began to worry she might actually have to make good on her threat, but the stallion buckled, taking a step back in defeat. "Daddy? What are you doing?" "We're going home, Diamond Tiara, and when we get there, you are grounded." "What? What? For how long?" "Indefinitely," the father snapped back as he and the young bully walked away. Twilight slammed the door of the library shut, a final punctuation to her angry rant, before taking a few deep breaths to calm herself. "Whoa. That was pretty scary, Twilight," Spike said from the back of the library. "I've never heard you pull a rank like that, using your position as Celestia's student to threaten some pony." "Yeah, and Celestia wouldn't be happy if she found out I did. So..." "Hey, my lips are sealed. Personally, I think you should have turned him into a cactus just to prove a point." "No, that wouldn't have helped. Still, I can't believe that little filly actually sent Nyx into the Everfree Forest. I mean, what was she thinking?" "Couldn't tell you. I don't make it a habit of trying to understand bullies," Spike replied, yawning as he glanced at the clock. "Well, it's late. I'm surprised Aloysius hasn't come in yet." His usual "Whoo!" Spike jumped, spinning around to see that the horned owl was sitting on top of a nearby bookshelf. "Seriously, we need to tie a bell on you. You're like a ninja owl or something." "Whoo!" the owl replied in his usual fashion. "You. Who?" "You, I'm talking about you." "Who?" You know what? I'm not getting into this with you," Spike said, heading toward the staircase. "I'm going to bed. Night, Twilight." "Good night, Spike." the unicorn replied, watching her assistant climb the steps. She then turned to look at Aloysius, who tilted his head expectantly. Sorry, Aloysius, but I'm really tired. It's been a long day. I hope you don't mind if I just go to bed too. Whoo! Was all the owl replied with. Taking flight, he swooped around the room, grabbed a book off a shelf, and dropped it on the reading table. The book fell open, Aloysius landing a moment later, bending over and beginning to read. This made Twilight giggle a little, happy to see the owl was able to keep himself busy at night, even when the unicorn wasn't up late studying. Leaving Aloysius to his reading, Twilight climbed up to the library's second floor. Spike had already shut off the lamps and curled into bed. The only light in the room came from the moon outside the window, just enough for Twilight to cross the room without any trouble. Next to Twilight's larger bed was a smaller one she had purchased for Nyx. She had expected to find the filly curled up there, but in the few moments Twilight had been downstairs, Nyx had curled up on top of the larger bed. Normally, Twilight would have encouraged Nyx to sleep in her own bed, but after the day they both had, she would overlook it for one night. Making sure not to wake Nyx, Twilight slipped herself slowly between the covers. She then levitated the blanket off Nyx's bed and covered the sleeping filly with it so she wouldn't get cold in the night. Despite being asleep, Nyx managed to sense Twilight's presence. She stirred, getting to her hooves. It was almost like she was sleepwalking, the blanket hanging off her body, as she moved over beside Twilight. She lay back down beside the unicorn, resting her little head in the crook of Twilight's neck. It was something that brought a smile to Twilight's face as she gently nuzzled the sleeping Nyx. Oh. The smile, however, slowly died as Twilight watched the filly sleep, her mind recalling all that had happened the last few hours. Her gaze drifted to the window, looking up at the distant moon. For a moment, she remembered what it used to look like when it bore the dark silhouette of the mare and the moon. She had a lot to think about, a lot to consider, but it would have to wait until morning. Her eyes were already drooping from the soft embrace of the bed, and soon Twilight drifted off into a well-deserved sleep. Knock, knock, knock. A white unicorn with a perfectly trimmed and slick-backed mane moved towards the door of a stately manor, magically undoing the locks and cracking open the large, elegant doors. Just beyond the doorway was a sleeping counterlot. The manor nestled in a part of the capital populated by the elite of Equestria, celebrities, politicians, and any pony else that was widely known and very well paid. The butler pony who answered the door, proper etiquette, looked out at the three figures now standing in front of the manor. 2 Pegasi and an earth pony, who were currently dressed very casually, meaning they had nothing on, the very definition of pony casual. Yes, proper etiquette, asked, looking over the 3 guests. May I help you? Just open the freaking door! The gray Pegasus, with a darker gray mane and a swirling tornado cutie mark, snapped. Of course, Miss Greygale, the butler replied, stepping back as he opened the door wide. The 3 ponies stepped in. The other Pegasus was a dark purple mare with a black mane and a swirling wind lines for a cutie mark. The sole earth pony was a dull, clay red stallion with a tall build. His blonde mane was very cut short, and his cutie mark was a stone wall that looked like castle battlements. Sir Spell Nexus is in his study. I believe you know the way, proper etiquette said as he shut the manor's front door. Yeah, we know the way, Greygale said, jumping into the air. But Nexus better have a good reason for calling us like this. Yes, Nightwind the purple Pegasus agreed. We are, after all, trying to lie low after that grand failure in the Everfree Forest. The town guard is much more alert and stopping ponies on the street if they run across them this late at night. I do not know why Spell Nexus called for you as he did, Proper Etiquette remarked as he began to walk away, but I do believe it will be difficult to find an answer unless you go and speak with him. Now, I must be off to the kitchen. Sir Spell Nexus does not like to host company without refreshment. Seriously, that pony takes his job way too seriously, Grey Gale mumbled to herself as the three ponies made their way through the manor. After climbing a flight of stairs and passing down a lavishly furnished hallway, the pair... Seriously, that pony takes his job way too seriously, Grey Gale mumbled to herself as the three ponies made their way through the manor. After climbing a flight of stairs and passing down a lavishly furnished hallway, they arrived at a door they all knew quite well. Since they were the ones that had been summoned, they didn't bother to knock before they entered the manor's study. The study was a cozy little room, with very large windows and a fireplace. One wall was lined with bookshelves, properly filled with either books or small knickknacks of pictures. The windows looked out over the elegant cityscape of Canterlot, a view that the manor's owner had been complimented on a number of times. The most prominent feature, however, was an oil painting above the fireplace. A regal portrait depicted a blue unicorn with a light grey mane sitting behind a very elegant-looking desk while offering a gentle smile. Below the portrait, set into the picture's polished wooden frame, was an engraved Sir Spell Nexus, Headmaster of Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns, Mystical Advisor to the Royal Court. The manor's owner, who was depicted in the portrait, stood directly in front of the study's fireplace, its flames reflecting his turquoise eyes. He did not turn to look at the three ponies who had entered his study, instead motioning with a hoof to some chairs. Please, have a seat. What's this about, Nexus? Gale asked as the trio sat down. You never send messages for us in the middle of the night. It is strange, Nightwind agreed. You are the one who's telling us to keep our movements subtle and hidden, and this is far from being subtle or hidden. And not all of us have cushy jobs like you do. The commander is already suspicious of why I was late reporting in after what happened in the Everfree Forest. I'm skating on thin ice with the town guard, Stonewall grumbled. Yes, I apologize for the late hour, my sisters and brother. There has been an interesting development. It better be interesting, Grey Gale mumbled under her breath. I assure you, it is, Nexus said, turning away from the fire and walking towards the three-seated ponies. It would seem that our efforts on the past full moon were not wasted. How are they not wasted? Grey Gale ranted, waving her hoof in a wide arch. A large chunk of our brothers and sisters were arrested by the guard. Celestia interrupted the spell, and we've lost the remains of Nightmare Moon. A grin spread onto Nexus's lips as his eyes glinted. Yes, but all those are no longer needed, for Nightmare Moon lives. There was a dead silence in the room, the Earth Pony and Pegasi looking at each other in disbelief. Grey Gale was the one to break the silence, shaking her head. Wait. Are you saying this spell worked? I did not dare to hope so, Spell Nexus mused before giving his head a nod. But, yes, at least in part. And Just how do you know that Nightmare Moon lives? Nightwind asked skeptically. If that were true, wouldn't she have overthrown Celestia by now? It is true, if our queen was at full strength, Equestria would already be bathed in the glory of a night eternal, and we would have received our just rewards as her loyal servants. Still, I cannot deny what I sensed and saw. Early this evening, a brilliant bolt of magical lightning shot up from the Everfree Forest, and in that moment, I sensed her. I sensed our queen in all her power and glory. Her power flared only briefly, like a firework bursting and fading in the night sky. But it was there. Spell Nexus swept to one side, light on his hooves for a moment. It was so magnificent. And it made something shift inside me. For a time, I felt positively giddy, and it took all my willpower to keep myself from racing into the forest. Well, it's nice to hear that we weren't wasting our time with that spell, Stonewall remarked, his very flat tone bringing Nexus back to the serious nature of the conversation. Yes, and now we have our purpose once again. Brother, sisters, we must find our queen. I believe her form, like the spell we cast that night, is incomplete, but something that can be completed. I believe she is in hiding, either amongst the trees of the Everfree Forest or in some area close to that. It is our duty as the children of Nightmare to seek her out and aid her however we can. And just how are we supposed to do that? Grey Gale asked cynically. It's not like we can just drop what we're doing and take a week-long stroll through the forest. This is true, but not all of our brothers and sisters were arrested in Celestia's interruption, Spell Nexus assured Grey Gale as he approached her. In the morning, you will find I've contracted out your services as a pair of wings for hire to deliver important letters to a number of certain individuals around Ponyville. Some of these are simple letters from Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns, but a few notes are to our brothers and sisters, telling them to keep an eye out for our queen. How will I know who is who? Gale asked. Nexus shook his head. No, their anonymity must be preserved. It is how we've been able to function so long without detection. Only I truly know all those who stand with the children of Nightmare. Which, as I've said before, is really creepy, Grey Gale remarked, only to get elbowed in the side by Nightwind. And what about us, Nexus? Stonewall asked. Stonewall, you must simply continue your duties with the town guard. Nightwind, however, has a greater responsibility. And that is? I have little doubt that Celestia will have sensed Nightmare Moon, and this will undoubtedly cause her to step up the research team she has working on analyzing our spell. Through our efforts, you were placed as a guard for that team. If Celestia speaks with them tomorrow, I want you to tell me exactly what she says. We must discover how much Celestia knows. The treacherous guard smirked. Eavesdropping is easy for us guards. Most of those we guard see us as little more than statues, so considering how we stand at times, I'm inclined to agree with them. Then let them continue to see you as nothing more than a statue. But keep your eyes open, Nexus advised. Celestia was able to stop us once, but fate has given us another chance to see our queen rise, and I will not see it slip through our hooves. For the night eternal, for Equestria's true queen, the other three ponies chimed back. Knock, knock, knock. Just one moment, a light blue unicorn stallion called, pulling himself out of bed. Bastian Yorsitz glanced at the clock, grumbling at the late hour as he began to head to his front door. His eggshell white mane and tail were a mess, but he had no desire to try to make himself presentable for any pony who would come knocking at such an hour. Horn glowing, Bastian opened his front door, intending to chew out whoever thought to disturb him so late at night. The unicorn, however, froze up like a statue when he saw Princess Celestia standing on his doorstep. Your Highness! Bastian stuttered out. I do apologize for the late hour, Bastian, but may I come in? Celestia asked sweetly, as if Bastian had every right to turn her away. Of course. Please make yourself at home. I'll be with you in a moment. The stallion then galloped off to his bedroom. Bastian Yorsitz was a teacher at Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns, who had been there when young Twilight Sparkle revealed her immense aptitude for magic. He was among the senior teaching staff, but recently he was also charged with leading the team studying the spell created by the cult ponies who had pony-napped Twilight Sparkle. Within a few minutes of the princess's arrival, Bastian re-emerged from his bedroom far more presentable, his mane and tail brushed. He had slipped into his normal work attire, a collared shirt and a light brown sweater vest. A thin black tie finished his ensemble. My apologies for making you wait, Your Highness, Bastian offered as he entered his living room, where the princess had laid down on the couch. Do not apologize, Bastian, Celestia said as the stallion sat down in a nearby chair. I would not normally disturb you at your home, or at such a late hour, but I was curious how things were going deciphering the spell. It is progressing, but slowly. The unicorns were making use of several very old forms of magic, of which there are few records. The oil-soaked powders they were using come from zebra magic, and while there were records of unicorns using arcane designs to direct the flow of magic, there are no books actually describing how such magical lines work. Bastian sighed tiredly. Things would undoubtedly be going better if we were able to get some information from the cultists. Have your guards been able to get any of them to talk? No, Celestia admitted with a shake of her head. The cultists are proving to be very strong-willed. The interrogators have not been able to convince any of those ponies to give up any new information. Then I am sorry, my princess, but I fear my team is doing the best it can, considering we're dealing with lost knowledge. Well, Celestia mused aloud. Purposefully hidden may be a more accurate term of phrase. Princess? The unicorn asked as he cocked an eyebrow. Bastian, I want you to move your team out of the library and into the royal archives tomorrow morning. I have already arranged with the guards for you and your team to have full access to anything in there. The stallion's eyes widened. Princess, the archives guide the most precious literature in Equestria. Tomes of ancient knowledge and stories that haven't been viewed first hoof in centuries. Yes, but that is the point. The tomes that are in that collection are the final copies of books and knowledge that I wish to have preserved but not available to all of Equestria. There is some very powerful magic in some of those books. Spells that, if attempted by ponies who do not fully understand them, could have dire consequences. Some of those books, however, describe the arcane magic that the cult spell is based upon, and thus would undoubtedly help your team understand the spell more quickly. Bastian nodded in understanding, the weight of this new privilege sinking in. We will move to the archives first thing in the morning. Good, the princess said with a nod. But one other thing, Bastian. Yes, your highness? While I do not want to distract your team from figuring out the spell's intended purpose, I must ask that you also start investigating what the spell did. What it did? Bastian echoed in confusion. Celestia gave a single nod. Yes, for you see, the cult was already casting the spell when I arrived with the guards. I was able to stop the spell, interrupt it, and I need to know if the spell was able to accomplish anything, even though it did not get cast to completion. That is a very theoretical branch of magic, Princess. Bastian frowned, unsure. Incomplete spells have been known to do a variety of things, some never doing the same thing twice. As I am well aware, Princess Celestia offered with a confident smile, but I have every faith in you, Bastian. You are the greatest mind in the field of theoretical magic at the school, after all. Bastian couldn't help but blush, bowing his head. You flatter me, Princess. I make no habit of flattery, Bastian. I only offer the compliments ponies deserve, Celestia replied, getting up from the couch. Now, I'd best depart. I wouldn't want to impose. You are never an imposition, Princess, though none of this seems terribly pressing. Might I ask why you felt this could not wait until morning? Celestia paused at the door, having already put one hoof outside, when she turned to look back at Bastian. I have simply realized that I have not been providing your team with the materials it is needed to analyze the spell quickly, and I have also come to realize this evening that swiftness in this matter is of the utmost importance.